There's a tattoo on Sean Connery's right forearm that most people never noticed. During his Bond years, camera angles rarely caught it. Tuxedo sleeves usually covered it. But it was there, had always been there since he was 16 years old. Two words in bold, slightly faded script: Scotland forever. He got it in the Royal Navy, a young sailor's impulsive declaration of identity, an oath written in ink and pain. But the story behind those words, why they meant so much to a boy from the slums of Edinburgh, the foundation upon which that oath was built, that story begins earlier. It begins with milk. Specifically, it begins with hundreds of glass bottles of milk that needed to be delivered before the sun rose over Edinburgh's cold streets. It begins in 1945 when 15-year-old Sean Connery took a job with the St. Cuthbert's Cooperative Society. Not because he loved milk, not because he had dreams of being a milkman, but because his family was poor and every shilling mattered, and this job paid £3 a week. £3 a week to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. £3 a week to load a heavy cart with bottles in the freezing dark. £3 a week to learn what Scotland meant. Not the romantic version, not the tourist version, but the real Scotland of working people who survived through discipline, endurance, and quiet dignity. If you're hearing this story and want to learn the real story of how Sean Connery transformed from a milkman into James Bond, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. This isn't just a rags to riches story. This is the story of how the lessons a boy learned on freezing Edinburgh mornings made him the world's most famous spy. In August of 1945, when Sean Connery turned 15, two parallel worlds existed in Edinburgh. In the new town where the wealthy lived, kids his age were still sleeping in warm beds, dreaming of university. In Fountainbridge, where Sean lived, there was no such luxury. That morning at 4 o'clock, on the day he became legally old enough to leave school and work full-time, Sean Connery was already awake, pulling on the worn jacket that marked him as a St. Cuthbert's milkman. His birthday present was permission to help his family survive. His celebration was the privilege of earning wages. Sean pushed his cart through the narrow, cramped streets of Fountainbridge, then up toward the elegant crescents. The milk was the same, but the lives were universes apart. And somewhere in that contrast, Sean began to understand something that would later make him perfect for James Bond. The world was divided by luck and circumstance. And if circumstances could be changed, if luck could be seized, then anything was possible. Sean didn't know that with every push of that cart, he was building something inside himself. Something hard, something enduring, something Hollywood could never teach. The discipline of those cold Edinburgh mornings would appear years later on Bond sets. The residents of Fountainbridge had a saying: you could set your clock by Big Tam's milk cart. 4:30 in the morning, precisely, the sound would begin. Big Tam, young Thomas Sean Connery, never missed a day. Rain, snow, even when he was sick. He showed up. Neighbors watched him grow into those broad shoulders. Mrs. Henderson on Murdoch Terrace used to say he looked like a film star even in that shabby jacket. Girls giggled when he passed. Older women treated him with maternal affection. Sean never took the extra biscuits. His mother had taught him pride. They were poor, but they weren't beggars. What the neighbors didn't know was what those morning routes meant to the boy pushing that cart. They didn't know that with every step through the dark streets, Sean was building something inside himself. Discipline, endurance, a quiet determination that would later be mistaken for natural confidence but was actually something harder earned. Sean's face was still smooth in those days, but his body told a different story. Lifting those heavy milk crates, pushing that cart up icy hills, all of it was shaping him. His muscles were the muscles of real work, survival work. They came from necessity, not vanity. Sean's family lived at 176 Fountainbridge, 6 people in a 2-room apartment. The walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors' conversations. Joseph Connery, Sean's father, drove a truck from dawn to dusk. He wasn't a talkative man, but he taught his son something. You do your job, you don't complain, you take care of your family. Euphemia was different. She spoke Gaelic Scots. She sang. Her hands were red from industrial soap. Her knees ached. But she smiled. When she looked at Sean, she saw something in her son's face. A possibility. A light. Those mornings when Sean went to each house, he learned that home story. Notes left on doors. Please, just one bottle today. No milk this week, money's gone. Those notes taught Sean that poverty was invisible, and Sean decided to give them something. Respect. Never pity, never questions. This quiet respect would later echo in Bond's character. After about a year of delivering milk, Sean's father got sick. Suddenly, Sean's £3 was the family's only income. It wasn't enough. Sean panicked. For the first time, he was truly afraid. The weight of responsibility crushed him. He tried to find more work. Some days he worked 18 hours. Then he saw a poster. Join the Royal Navy. The Navy paid more than milk delivery. That evening, he talked with his family. Sean knew his decision. Within a few weeks, he'd be in the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy was a shock for Sean. He expected discipline, but the Navy's discipline was different. Sean adapted. He served 3 years on HMS Formidable. He saw the Mediterranean. The world became enormous. But in the Navy, he discovered something else: bodybuilding. He lifted every day. His body changed. Other sailors noticed. Sean would smile but wouldn't explain. Maybe it was control. Maybe it was strength. During those Navy years, he did something else impulsive: a tattoo. Scotland forever. On my right arm, there was pain with each needle prick. He watched each letter carved into his skin. 2 words. But for Sean, it meant a promise. No matter where he went, he wouldn't forget Scotland. But Sean's Navy career was shorter than he planned. At 19, his stomach began to hurt terribly. Diagnosis: duodenal ulcer. Serious. He had to be discharged. Sean couldn't believe it. But there was no choice. In 1949, at 19 years old, Sean Connery was medically discharged from the Royal Navy. He returned to Edinburgh. He felt like a failure. He had to find work. The first job he found: coffin polisher. In a dark workshop, he polished coffins. Every day surrounded by death. When Sean saw his reflection in that coffin's shiny surface, he'd think, one day I'll be inside one of these too. So what am I going to do with this life? Those were Sean's darkest days. Sometimes at night he'd lie there, stare at the ceiling and think, is this it? Is this my life? But a voice, an inner voice, would whisper, you're not done yet. Keep going. After the coffin job, he found other work. House painting. In every job he used his body. One day while painting walls at the King's Theatre, a woman approached. Have you ever thought about acting? Sean laughed. Me? No. I paint walls. You paint walls well, but theatre offers a brighter future. That conversation stuck in Sean's head. Sean kept lifting weights. In 1950, a friend suggested, there's a Mr. Universe competition. Junior category. You should go. Sean hesitated, but then thought, maybe this is a door. He went to London. The competition was at the Royal Albert Hall. Backstage. Sean panicked, but he walked on stage. Spotlights hit. Sean remembered those freezing Edinburgh mornings. If I could handle that, I can handle this. He struck poses. The audience applauded. Results: Mr. Universe Junior category, 3rd place, bronze medal. And that night, theatre people were in the audience. They noticed Sean Connery. When he returned to Edinburgh, Sean needed work again. This time, he found a very different job: art model. Edinburgh Art Academy was calling for nude figure drawing. First day Sean came to the academy, he undressed, stepped onto the podium. For hours he stayed that way, motionless, naked, while 20 pairs of eyes studied him. Sean looked straight ahead. Over time, the shame faded. This was art. This taught Sean something: being seen, being judged, being examined. He could handle these things. In 1951, a musical production opened in Edinburgh, South Pacific. Sean went to the audition. Hundreds of people were there. His name was called. He walked on stage. The director looked tired. Sean, what are you going to show us? Sean impulsively struck a bodybuilding pose. The audience laughed. But the director didn't. The director approached the stage. Do you have acting experience? No, sir. But you have physical presence. Chorus. Background. But you'll be on stage. Sean couldn't believe it. First step. In South Pacific, Sean's role was minimal. He stood in the chorus, in the background. He never spoke. But Sean absorbed everything. He'd watch rehearsals, he learned stage technique, and he discovered something: he loved theatre. In 1953, Sean received news. A producer in London was looking for actors. Sean's name was recommended. This was a big opportunity, but it was terrifying. Leaving Edinburgh, Euphemia cried. Sean held his mother. This is an opportunity, a real opportunity. Sean boarded the train. He had a suitcase and determination in his heart. London overwhelmed Sean. He rented a small room in a boarding house. The first audition didn't go well. Disappointment, but Sean didn't give up. He went to more auditions. Television, film, theatre. Many rejections. Sometimes small roles. In London, Sean learned loneliness. Evenings he'd sit in his room thinking, what am I doing here? But he'd look at that Scotland Forever tattoo and remember. In 1954, Sean got his first film role. Very small, but he was in a film. More small roles came. In 1956, at 25, Sean was still struggling. But a phone call came. An agent contacted Sean. I see potential. I'd like to represent you. For the first time, he had professional representation. In 1961, a rumor spread. A new James Bond film was being made. Producers were looking for an actor. Sean's agent suggested his name. The producers hesitated. They watched Sean's footage. Interesting, but Scottish. Still, they called him for an audition. When Sean arrived at the studio, he was panicking. In the waiting room, he saw other actors. Handsome, polished. Sean thought, I'm in the wrong place. But it was too late. His name was called. He entered the room. Broccoli, Saltzman, Young, Ian Fleming. They all sized him up. Mr. Connery, what do you know about Bond? Sean was honest. Bond is tough, elegant, but dangerous. Young nodded. Walk across the room like Bond. Sean stood. He summoned the walk from those milk roots. He walked, slow, deliberate, threatening but controlled. Fleming leaned forward. Young smiled. Bond is calm in a crisis. Show us. Sean remembered that ulcer crisis. His face calmed. His eyes went cold. Silence. Then Fleming spoke. Scottish. But maybe Bond could be Scottish. The producers were surprised. Let's test him. A few days later, full-screen test. A tuxedo from Bond's wardrobe. When Sean looked in the mirror, he didn't recognize himself. He did test shots for camera. Young directed every moment. After the shoot, he waited. Then the phone rang. You got the role. You're James Bond. Sean called his mother. I got a big role. James Bond. Euphemia cried. I knew it. I always knew. Joseph came to the phone. I'm proud of you, son. 3 words. For Sean, everything. In early 1962, Dr. No filming began, in Jamaica. Sean got on a plane for the first time. The set wasn't easy. Long days, physical scenes. Young taught Sean everything. Sean struggled. Sometimes he'd ask, am I good enough? He'd hear Euphemia's voice. He'd tell himself, if I could handle that milk route, I can handle this. There was one scene, Bond, James Bond. Young made him do it 20 times. Finally, on the 21st take, Sean said it perfectly. Slow, deliberate, threatening but attractive. Young shouted, perfect. In that moment, Sean Connery became James Bond. October 1962. Dr. No premiere in London. Red carpet, flashes, crowds. When Sean stepped out of the limousine, he heard screams. Sean. Sean was shocked. How do they know me? When the film started, Sean tensed. Watching yourself on screen was strange, but the audience was mesmerized. At the end of the film, standing ovation. Critics wrote, some were skeptical, but most were fans. The public went crazy. Dr. No was a huge box office success. Sean Connery became a star overnight, but fame wasn't easy. Suddenly, he had no freedom to go anywhere. Everywhere people would stop him. The press tracked his every move. Sean missed Fountainbridge. Everyone knew him, but no one really knew him. They saw Bond, they didn't see Sean. More Bond films came, each bigger, more successful. Sean was a worldwide icon, but he was typecast. In 1967, after the 5th film, Sean announced, I'm done. But without Bond, his career struggled. Years later, he came back. Was it the money? Partly. But Sean realized Bond was his legacy. In the 70s and 80s, Sean built a career beyond Bond. Diverse roles. He proved his versatility. But to the public, he would always be James Bond. Sean made peace with that. In an interview, a reporter asked, Do you regret being Bond? Sean shook his head. No, Bond gave me everything. But I also gave Bond something. Authenticity. Because I brought the character from Fountainbridge, that milkman's discipline. I made Bond human. Real. I'm proud of that. In his 60s, Sean returned to Edinburgh. He walked to Fountainbridge, stopped at Murdoch Terrace. Sean knocked on the door. It was Mrs. Henderson's granddaughter. Sean Connery. Grandma has to see you. He went inside. Mrs. Henderson sat in her chair. When she saw Sean, her eyes lit up. Big Tam. I knew it. I always knew. Sean knelt down. Thank you for what you said that morning. You were right. For the rest of Sean's career, young actors would come for advice. How did you do it? Sean always told the same story. Those freezing mornings, that discipline. The real beginning is about what you do. Those mornings taught me, show up. Every day. Discipline beats talent. Always. Another lesson. Don't forget your roots. Don't be ashamed of them. My Scottish accent, they wanted to change it at first, but I softened it, didn't erase it, because it's real, authentic. Don't be afraid to be yourself. And the final lesson, success isn't instant. For me it took 15 years of struggle, but I didn't quit, because there was no other choice. Remember that. As Sean approached 90, a documentary crew came, and they asked, what was your proudest moment? Everyone expected Bond, but Sean said something different. My proudest moment? That milk route. At 15, working for my family, tired, cold, future uncertain. But I got up every morning, delivered every bottle, never complained. That discipline, that simple, pure discipline, is the foundation of everything. Bond, fame, success. It all rests on that milk cart. My proudest moment is actually tens of thousands of moments. Every milk delivery, every freezing morning, because that's where I earned myself. That's where I learned who I was. Sean Connery died in 2020, at 90 years old. The world mourned. News showed Bond clips. But in Fountainbridge, old people remembered something different. He wasn't just Bond to us. He was Big Tam, the neighbor's kid, the milkman. We never forgot. He never forgot us. In Edinburgh, a monument was erected, a bronze statue, but not in a Bond tuxedo. Young Sean, in his milkman's uniform, holding a milk bottle, on a plaque below the statue. Thomas Sean Connery, 1930-2020, from Fountainbridge to the world, Scotland forever. And below that, discipline beats talent, always. Sean's story wasn't just an actor's story. It was a survival story, a transformation story. Every morning when he pushed that milk cart, he didn't know he'd become a world star. But after he became a world star, he never forgot that milk cart. Your roots aren't your starting point, they're your foundation. Sean built, stone by stone, day by day, milk bottle by milk bottle. And in the end, the milkman became James Bond. But James Bond always carried that milkman inside him. That's what made him real. That's what made him unforgettable. Scotland forever. A promise made, a promise kept. From Fountainbridge to Leicester Square. From freezing mornings to spotlights. But throughout the journey, identity wasn't lost. It only grew, because Sean had learned. Be yourself, show up, stay disciplined. The rest comes naturally. And it did.